This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill.
I'm so much more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill. This morning, we interviewed Giovanni Lisi with Serenity Real Estate. Bill, what'd you think?
At 23 years old, this guy's got a lot figured out. He'll be the first to say that. Hey, he never stops learning. None of us do. But at 23 years old, he's got some serious momentum.
Yeah, you meet a lot of people that want to be in real estate. I met Gio about a year ago, and as soon as I met him, I was, okay, this guy is not someone that just wants to be in real estate. He's really doing this, and he has his blinders on, and there is no stopping this guy.
No, and as he mentioned, he talks to people that are interested in getting into real estate. Some are serious, some aren't. And if you're serious, you have a great chance, great opportunity. If you're not serious, forget real estate, forget anything. If you're not serious, the chances of failing are great. But this is a serious guy.
Yeah, and he talks about his networking being a big part of his success, and I see that because I almost every meetup I go to, I hear Gio's name get mentioned somewhere. Every time I go on LinkedIn, I see a new building listed by Gio or just closed by Gio. So I think he's very good at networking, and that's adding to success.
Yeah, it's a very important part of the game.
Excited to see his growth in the future.
No doubt.
Really excited to have Giovanni Lisi here this morning with us, known by Gio Lisi. Gio, can we get right into it? I want to hear more about your real estate background. How'd you get into the industry?
Absolutely. So I actually got my real estate license when I was 19. At the time, I was a freshman at Siena College, and I was looking around in my classroom, and there were a lot of other kids who were going for the similar degree as mine. And I figured, how can I make myself stand out from everyone else? And my one idea was, okay, maybe I can somehow get into real estate. And my dad at the time had a connection with a local real estate agent who brought me on board to his brokerage and let me shadow him for about a month or two. And I didn't really think I was going to get into the sales aspect of real estate. Really, for me to shadow him, he was doing a lot of flips at the time. So I was looking at a lot of his flip projects. And that was kind of my idea of getting into real estate, was to start doing maybe some flips with my dad or on my own. And I eventually kind of fell into the sales aspect of real estate after shadowing this broker here in the capital region. And eventually that July, so I finished my freshman year in May. In that July, I got my license and hit the ground running all throughout the summer and then into like the fall of my sophomore year of college. And it was slow at first. A lot of people think getting into real estate, selling real estate is, get rich quick type scheme, but it's not. It takes a lot of time and a lot of time of marketing yourself, getting your name out there. And eventually things took off for me about, I'd say 4 to 5 months later. And more or less, I was able to do real estate as much full-time as I could while going to college full-time. So I was able to be a full-time agent while getting my undergrad degree, and was fortunate enough throughout my time at Siena, I was able to pay for my tuition on my own through my proceeds of real estate. So that was something that was a huge success, and my dad was super happy about that. And eventually, back in fall of 2019, I made a switch to a different brokerage that focused more on real estate investing, which is called Serenity Real Estate. And that's where I work now. And my brokers, Vinny and Vitali, own over 350 rental units here in the capital region. And that's the reason why I joined their team, is because I wanted to get into more of the investment side of real estate. I knew that long term, yes, I want to sell real estate, but I don't want to sell real estate my entire life. I want to eventually grow a team and build a team and have my team kind of sell real estate, and I coach them along the way. But I knew that my one way to financial freedom would be to start investing on my own. And I decided in August so after shadowing them and getting the expertise of how they run their business, I eventually, got my first property in August of 2020 with my business partner, who's a local CPA here. His name is Sean Daly. And Sean's a few years older than me. And what's good is we're kind of yin and yang, where Sean does more of the finance side of things and runs all the numbers in the back end and deals with all that. And I'm the one out in the field finding us the deals, going ahead, dealing with tenants, dealing with contractors, and kind of it's all encompassing. And it kind of works out great for us. So Yeah, August of 2020, we bought our first investment property, and now we're up to 23 rental units, so 7 buildings that we own. So
that is super impressive. I love that young age getting into real estate. It took me, my junior year in college. I read that first book, and that was the light bulb moment for me. I have several questions for you here, but you just got my attention with Sean Daly. I know every day I feel like I'm saying it's a small world, but Sean bought a 4-unit from me in Cohoes.
he did, yes.
And tell us if you're involved in that and what that looks like.
So the 4-unit that he bought with you in Cohoes, I'm separate out of that one, but that was his first investment property that he purchased. That's one of the reasons why I partnered up with him, is because he had some experience already going off the rip. I have a lot of friends my age who say they want to get into real estate, and some of them are serious and some of them are not. But it was good partnering up with Sean because he was a little bit more mature. He's 28, 29, and he's able to kind of bring that expertise of the accounting. But no, on that specific deal, I'm not really associated with the 4-unit, but I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Cool.
A lot of impressive things you touched on there. Really impressed by someone that can pay for their education while in school. How old are you right now, Gio?
I'm 23.
23, and that makes everything even more impressive. So you mentioned having great synergy with your partner, Sean. I think a lot of investors are looking for a partner that they can have that synergy with. How did you find Sean?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I actually found him off of Craigslist. As weird as that sounds. So I was marketing an off-market deal on Craigslist, and Sean reached out to me, and we kind of just got connected, started talking briefly over the phone. And then there was a property in Cohoes on Main Street that was for sale, big yellow building. And there was probably like 20 investors outside the one day. And I just so happened to stumble upon Sean there after he was like, "Hey, look, I don't know if you know me or we haven't met face to face, but I'm Sean." We spoke on the phone, and then kind of we were able to meet like a few more times after that and started to create a good relationship and started to be able to trust each other. And it was kind of a chance we both took because we, just briefly met, I'd say like 3 months before we started investing together. But so far, going into 2 years now, it's been a great relationship to grow. And definitely, we have the same vision. My goal is to hit close to 250, 300 units in the next 10 years. That's my game plan. And then eventually and Bill, I kind of followed your story along the way, is do something very similar to what Bill has done, is eventually either sell those off or refinance those out and start getting into some bigger endeavors, bigger apartment complexes and stuff like that. So.
No, I appreciate that. That's great. And boy, I have many, many years in this, and geez, there's so many things that I would do differently. I'm so grateful that I started super young, so you can, do things certain ways, and no matter how you slice it, it's still real estate, and it all turns out great at the end, as long as you're buying correctly. What does your next couple of years look like? Or what are you focusing on now in the next couple of years? Are you playing around with the small properties? Are you looking bigger, faster? What's that look like?
Yeah. So right now we look for anywhere from like 2 to 4 units. I try to stay away from 2 families for the most part. I always said I would never buy a 2 family, but then so happens I have 2 of them now. And they've actually turned out to be one of my better deals. From a BRRRR aspect, I'm able to pull a little bit more money out of the 2 families, is what it seems like as of right now. They don't cash flow as great as like a 4 or a 6 unit, but it has helped us get our start and move that money around into other properties. But with that being said, we just picked up a 6 unit in Mechanicville recently, an off-market deal, and we're going through the renovations now. And hopefully we'll be able to refinance that out in the next like 6 months or so. But the plan is to get larger units like that, 4 to 6 or even higher than that, because those tend to cash flow way better than, the smaller units within reason. So that's kind of our game plan. I'm at 23 rental units. I like to joke 23 rental units at 23. That's been my catchphrase, and that'll last until I turn 24 next month. But I think more or less I want to try to get to 50 here in the next year and a half to 2 years, 50 units. And then start scaling it up a little bit more once we continue on. So,
You mentioned having some friends getting into real estate, but you're not sure how serious they are. I met you about a year ago, and it was obvious from the minute I met you that you were pretty serious about this, and I've been impressed by what you've done as an investor since then, and that just shows in your unit count. You also mentioned that it was slow to grow that first year of being an agent while you were still in school. You're figuring out the business, and that's when you see a lot of the newer agents or investors give up because they haven't built up the momentum. Can you go back and tell us a little bit more about that first year? While it's still slow, but you have an idea that you like real estate, you might want to see this be a career in the future, but you're struggling to build momentum.
Yeah, it definitely, it takes, I think the biggest thing, so I have a lot of friends that reach out, say they want to become an agent and this and that. And some of them have tried it and some of them have been really successful. And then some of them realize that it's not that easy. And that's the biggest thing, where it's a slow start at the front of it, right? And more or less, a lot of people from the start think it's something that you can kind of get rich quick off of. And it was something I even thought, okay, I can start, doing business right away. And that's not really the case. You gotta, unless you're, a crazy natural and like really putting the time into it, where at the time I was definitely putting a lot of time and effort in. But I think looking back, I was putting a lot of time and effort in on things that didn't really grow my business or didn't make me that much successful. But after having that experience and getting into it, you learn what works and what doesn't work. Someone taught me early on. I was always nervous about getting into real estate full time because it's 100% commission, right? And my biggest worry was that I wouldn't be able to support myself, or some years might be hot, some years might be low, but it's all about consistency. If you do the right things consistently and find what works for you and get into a routine, then it becomes natural. It becomes okay, like clockwork. Like things will start coming in. Yeah, there's highs and lows like to everything in sales, right? We may have in February and March, I tend to see it a little bit a low and I feel down on myself, but then I pick myself back right up and boom, this month I have, 6 more listings coming out in the next week, right? So it's all just a high and low type mentality, especially it's like a roller coaster basically. And I think that's something that a lot of people my age, they want something that's more safe. They want something that can provide them a 9-to-5, a salary type position. A lot of people don't have that entrepreneurial spirit. I see it more and more though in younger generations now with like the growth of like social media and TikTok. A lot of people are starting to promote themselves as entrepreneurs, and whether it's through as a social media influencer, running their own business or whatever it is. But I tend to see more and more people getting into it now. But a lot of people, when they're coming out of college or while they're in college, they want stability. They want to make sure that they can get on the right path in life, and they're afraid to take that risk. I look at it as I'm young. I much rather take the risk now than when I'm 30 or 40, right? I much rather know, take a chance on myself now and know that, all right, if it doesn't work out, I have my degree to fall back on and I can get a 9-to-5 job if I want to. But, I look past that now and I think I'm beyond that, but more or less, that kind of use that as, okay, that's my safety blanket, when I first started. But yeah, it's definitely tough starting out.
I completely agree. Being young is the time to take the risk. And we are seeing more of that risk taking with this younger generation. You mentioned consistency being one of the keys to your success. On the investing side, I'm impressed, but on the brokerage side, I'm signing on to LinkedIn like every day and I see you post a picture of a new property listed or a new property closed with one of your clients. What are some of the things that you're doing consistently to get you that success on the brokerage side? Or are there other things you're doing to get that success? Because I'm really impressed by the amount that I'm seeing you do on the brokerage side of things.
I think it's more or less like having the connections and networking, right? Like networking is huge. And I think getting your name out there, so when I first started, my goal was to meet someone new every single day, like one new face every single day, and get my name out there and try to expand my network and my name. So when I, basically mention myself to my friends and family, I want them to think, all right, Giovanni sells real estate. Like think of me as like the real estate agent, right? And being on the forefront of people's minds, like I noticed that when I post on social media, I tend to, be fresh on people's minds, right? And when I don't post, and I went through a drought, like probably from like September to January this past year, I wasn't posting. And a lot of people were forgetting about me. I saw some friends buy real estate through other brokers and this and that. And I was like, wow, like what am I doing wrong? I think it was more or less back then, I wasn't I wasn't getting my name out there. And it's funny because when I'm not posting, probably I'm the most busiest. Like I probably don't have time to think about social media. I'm actually out there putting deals together. But when I'm, posting and I'm getting on the forefront of people's minds, and I start having people reach out to me saying, oh yeah, I'm young. I want to start getting into real estate investing, or, oh yeah, I see what you're doing. It's awesome. You're doing a great job. I want to start getting into that. And I slowly have that conversation with them and build up the rapport to start showing them some houses, or start showing them how I look at my investment strategy and different things like that. So I think my biggest part of my business is social media. And then also from networking with other agents and other realtors and then other investors out here in the capital region. Being an investor myself, going to investor meetups and different things like that definitely helps get my name out there and referral business. So.
And that's being an entrepreneur, especially at a young age. We're going into this with so much uncertainty, so much of that unknown, literally just mulling our way through, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. Ultimately, you have to find that balancing act. I can appreciate so much that you mentioned. I decided to be an investor, become a broker, but it was all about investing. That is what was clear to me. Building wealth was investing in real estate. And then I dabble along with some brokerage because, I'm licensed, and ultimately turning into a property manager, completely losing balance of investing or even the brokerage side. After a while, I'm a property manager, which was fine. But I created this job.
Yeah.
Are you managing your own properties, and what's your plan there?
Yeah, we are. We manage our own properties, and actually, as a brokerage, we manage over 350 rental units here in the area. So I have a small sector of that where I'm a self-manager of a small group of properties that I was able to acquire from investors here in the area that I help manage. And then I have a gentleman on my team, really awesome guy. His name's Dave Kopic, and he's kind of like the head of our leasing. And we recently gave him a big 40-unit project to manage in Cohoes. So that is a forefront of our business too. And it tends, like you said, Bill, like sometimes it does take time away from the other things. And I've noticed that over time. And it's kind of creating for me, all right, that balance. Like, all right, I can put this much time over here. And then at some point I may need to have an assistant who take over the phone calls or, handle, maintenance calls and different things like that. So that's kind of something that I've been learning along the way to kind of streamline my business. And that's something that me and Sean on our personal business, we want to start streamlining. Like, I don't want to get to 350 units and still be self-managing these and scrambling all over the place. I want to be able to have systems in place and slowly incorporate those systems so we're more streamlined where, all right, I'm at 350 units. I can go on vacation and not have to worry about a phone call, at 5:00 while I'm at dinner, or different things like that. And that's the biggest thing. But I think when we hit right around the 100 unit level, personally with me and Sean, I think we're going to start either hiring someone to help manage that part of our business and maybe have our own property management underneath our shingle and just have that person self-manage our stuff. So it's all encompassing, all in one circle. So it's something that we have to discuss, but yeah, it's slowly now we're starting to try to streamline things. So when we get to that point, it's not like, oh, now we have to incorporate this new system. So yeah.
I think we met Dave at our last meetup. Another young guy. Looks like he's pretty into the business. As an investor, you have to wear a lot of hats. There's a brokerage, the investing, the management. What's your favorite part of the business?
My favorite part, more or less, is interacting really with new investors and meeting them and seeing kind of what their vision is and kind of showing them other strategies and ideas and how they can invest. Because some people, they think just one direction when there's multiple assets or multiple facets of real estate that you can go into, right? There's multiple ways to invest. And that's what I think I like about real estate, because like you said, Bill, in the beginning, you can mess it up as long as you're buying the right deals. You can't really mess it up, right? Like if you're getting a good deal on a property, yeah, things could go wrong, but if it's still a good deal at the end of the day, you could kind of go in any which direction. And that's what's pretty cool about real estate. And I think it's kind of overcoming adversity a lot of times. I always joke and say the two hardest parts and the two biggest things that will burn new investors out are tenants and contractors, right? And tenants and contractors, it's kind of just overcoming that, that extra layer of adversity. Like a tenant may throw something on you, but you got to find another way around it, right? Like during COVID and during the eviction ban, what were other ways that investors could get tenants out? I don't know, cash for keys. There were other avenues that people could take. And a lot of people, some of those who are stuck in one way, were just thinking just evictions and let their tenants stay there for a year or 2 years without paying rent, and didn't think about the other avenues that you could go down and help get that tenant out. And the same with contractors. It's more or less, a lot of people get burnt out over time because normally it takes about, I don't know, almost 100 contractors to find one good one, usually, right? Like it really takes a lot of trial and error to find, someone that you can rely on, someone you can trust. I've noticed with some contractors, they're good for like 3 jobs and then boom, they disappear, right? So it's finding that that person that you could trust, and it takes some time and trial and error. And I think that's the biggest thing too. But overall, I also like kind of investing and being able to grow my portfolio and getting cool new deals and help manage those. And like right after this, I'm going to head to Mechanicville right now and check on what because we're putting new siding on our building. And then we have a guy sprucing up the common area. So just kind of keeping an eye on them and seeing that project come along.
So once again, being that real estate entrepreneur, you're selling, you're managing, you are going and checking on the property, I guess, in a sense, a bit of construction management, still working out that balancing act. I love that during COVID, getting creative. So I always equated getting creative with creative financing, getting into no money down deals, things such as that, where you're discussing creative ways to get non-payers out of your buildings when we completely lost any leverage that we ever had, which was eviction court. What do some of your deals look like? Are you getting into some deals where you have to get creative financing, working with different sellers, figuring out ways that you're able to get into these deals?
So for me personally, all my deals that I've done so far are using private money and kind of buying them right the first time. And I like to say that, and hopefully I can continue on this trend, where I've put $0 of my own money into these properties. So I haven't come out of pocket once. So I've bought these using private money, and then basically 100% of the rehab costs, 100% of the purchase was all tied into that. And then, make sure that my budget looks right, make sure that everything looks right on the purchase, and then stick to that, and then go through the renovations and then refinance out and pull, if not 100 to maybe 125% of money out, right? Because sometimes I'm able to get a check at closing for what was left in the property if it was a really good deal. So, and then I tend to use that money from the refinances. It's not my money, it's the bank's money, and I'll use that to roll into other properties and projects, and I'll be my own private money lender and charge myself that percentage that I was going to charge, someone else was going to charge me. So,
no money down is the name of the game. Can you give us a little bit more detail on what those private money loans look like, what the rates are, what the terms are? I think a lot of listeners, they hear, oh, I use private money to get in, no money down, and then you don't get any detail and they're frustrated because they can't do it themselves. So what could you tell the listeners to help them structure a deal like that?
So that was the hardest part for me, and that's what I struggled with. And that's one of the reasons why I partnered up with Sean. Sean, as a CPA, has access to a lot of people who tend to have money, right? And that was one thing. I think I saw like something on Instagram. Someone said, partner up with a CPA. And it just so happens that my business partner is a CPA. So it worked out. But I think the biggest thing was my struggle was finding private money. I was always afraid to ask someone, hey, look, can I borrow money from you? You know what I mean? I don't know. I felt weird about doing that. Especially me being young. I had the expertise and background that most people don't, which was great, but I was still young and I didn't have a deal under my belt yet. So it was tough for me to really get the true trust from an investor. And that's the biggest thing, is having kind of that background. And that's something that Sean brought to the table, owning one of Bill's properties already and kind of having a duplex that he owned or occupied already. So we already had kind of all my expertise on managing properties and selling real estate, and then him with the number side, and then already owning real estate, which was all encompassing. So when we went out and met with different investors, it was easy for us to pitch ourselves. But a lot of our private money investors are close friends, family, and people that we know just on a business, personal level. It's not really anyone outside. We don't use hard money or anything like that. It's true private money, from individuals that we know and trust. So it really varies. We have one investor that will do 8%. We have one that will go up as high as 15%. So it's really kind of anywhere in that gap as far as like interest. And then, like I said, we don't put any money down. And that's really kind of it as far as like terms, more or less. And most of them want a minimum of 6 months holding. And then if it's a project where we get it out from under it a little bit early, and roll their money into another deal, sometimes they're cool with that. Sometimes they may just want the interest that's owed on that project up front at closing. So yeah.
Are they usually interest only? Are they balloon payments? What are they structured like?
Yep, interest only for those during that time period. And we're cool with that because we're only going to be holding their money for sometimes 3 to 8 months time frame, and then we'll refinance out. So
awesome. And as you're building these relationships with this private money, as your investors see your success, are some of them just concentrating on being a debt partner? Or are some saying, hey, how do we get in on the equity side?
Some of them have asked that. Actually, one recently that hasn't even invested with us yet was asking that right off the rip because he sees the success that we've had and kind of really what we're doing. We haven't really explored that avenue yet. We're more or less just staying on the debt side with these investors, and a lot of them are cool with it. And we have one that, basically so he has a self-directed IRA, and majority of his money is out with us, where he had like multiple investors at one time, but he trusts us so much now where we're sending him progress reports on the siding going up and the, one unit being turned over right after owning it for like 2 weeks. And he's like super impressed and just wants to see us continue to grow. And then some of our investors have even decided they wanted to hold the mortgage for us over 20 years, 25 years, and reduce that interest rate down to a normal, standard what a conventional loan would look like, or a commercial loan, which has been awesome and has helped us on a few deals where we could save some money on the closing costs and not have to deal with the banks involved and just kind of get out from under that project. So it's worked out on that aspect. But yeah, some of them have approached us recently as far as getting into the game. And that's something that we would definitely talk about. And if it was a larger deal that we needed some larger financing on, yeah, we would definitely be open to it. So
having an investor hold the entire mortgage, that's a good one. I haven't seen that yet. I could definitely see you getting into.
I didn't think it was possible until it happened, but it happened. I guess the biggest thing in real estate is never be afraid to ask. So
yep, if you don't ask, it's not going to happen.
Wow. Yeah, that's a life lesson in general. I learned that the hard way. If you don't ask, you're definitely going to have a no.
Absolutely.
You also mentioned, I like when you said that you had a goal of networking with one investor in the capital region every day, and that definitely contributed to the success that you've had. Are you looking outside of the capital region at all? I saw after Bill grow a career in this capital region, and I can't find one person in the real estate industry that doesn't know of Bill, and that there's a lot of reasons why that's beneficial to have that local community. But there are also things in New York that aren't necessarily landlord friendly, like a lot of the legislation. So have you looked outside of this area at all?
For us to invest personally, yeah, we've looked into it, and something that we want to get into at some point. But I'm watching the market down there is a short-term rental in Florida, and I've been kind of keeping my eye close on it because things have skyrocketed down there, and I could see if there was ever a bubble that burst, which I don't know. So many people have different opinions on it, and I don't know which direction the market could go in that aspect. But Florida, I think, would be one of the first places that it would get hit because of such the increase of travel and stuff like that. But I could be wrong. But I want to, if I was going to get a good deal down there and do an Airbnb, it's got to be a really, really good deal. I'm not overpaying by $100,000, $200,000 from what the prices were 2 years ago. And that could be the new norm. And that's something that I may have to realize, but more or less, if I was going to do it, I would want to make sure I get a good deal. But yeah, Florida is our eye on short-term rentals specifically. And Steven, me and you talked about it. And I know you went to school down there, is Tampa area. I really like Tampa, Florida. And I like that part of Florida. I see the growth in Tampa, and not only is all their sports teams doing pretty good right now, I think it's just a great place to travel to. And I was always biased to the East Coast. I never really liked the West Coast, even though I never traveled to it. And until I finally traveled to the West Coast, I was like, wow, I like it over here, and it's pretty cool. And then my business partner, his in-laws live down in Boca Raton, like over near Fort Lauderdale. And that might be an avenue that we would look into, but the prices are super high over there. Even higher than what Tampa would be too. So something that we're keeping our eye on. I definitely think over time, we're going to have to adapt and with legislation here in New York, I don't think it's going to get any better. So it's something that we definitely have our eye on. If we ever had to go elsewhere, we're definitely open to it. I think the biggest thing in real estate, like we've mentioned already, is you got to adapt, and you got to adapt to changes over time. And if that means to get into a different market because things are a little bit better and a little bit easier as far as landlord tenant laws and different things like that, then so be it. Then you're going to have to go roll with the punches. But even from an investor standpoint, investors that I work with, my biggest tool is bigger pockets. I've basically grown an investor portfolio and network across the country, whether it's from California all the way, as far, even Alaska, I met someone. So there's a handful of people through there that I've been able to network with. And a lot of my investors right now that invest here in the area, as far as the brokerage side of things, are out of the area, more or less. A lot of them are from downstate or from different parts of the country. So that's been a big help as far as that part of networking.
Being resourceful as an entrepreneur, but yeah, man, we have a lot of career parallels. I'm closing on a short-term rental in Tampa in 2 weeks. I love that city. It's growing. I think those secondary cities are going to continue to grow, even though we've seen those price increases. We saw it in Austin. Those houses that were 200,000 15 years ago are 1.2 million now. And I think the Charlottes and Tampa are next up for that.
I would agree.
And you never know. As we mentioned, none of us have a crystal ball. We're in certainly a super hot part of that market cycle. What I experienced in 2008, and yes, there's a lot of different characteristics, was our area, the capital region of New York, when that recession hit. Boy, was I concerned, but we were insulated. Our state capital, universities, hospitals allowed us to have that insulation and to continue to run our business without being super negatively impacted, where Vegas, Arizona, Florida got crushed. I don't know if that's going to happen this next time around, but as you mentioned, it's got to be a good deal. I don't care if it's in the capital region of New York. I don't care where it is. It's got to be a good deal.
All right.
Why buy something that's not a good deal? If you can't make a deal, stay patient and you'll find a good deal down the road. And that's what separates the people that are just trying to do the fear of missing out and just getting in on something in a hot market in relation to the actual professionals in this business. So the one thing all three of us can agree with is we love that Tampa market. The demographics are fantastic, and you can just list all the reasons why we invest down there, along with it being probably a top 5 market in this country. Getting to that brokerage side a bit, and I dealt with this throughout my career. Are you representing a lot of investors where they're approaching you to sell their property and you're saying, man, I'd like to own that myself? So what's the balancing act there as far as, okay, I'll sell your 5 unit, or have you had those discussions where it's, hey, I'd be happy to sell your 5 unit, but let's talk about potentially me buying that 5 unit. Have you bumped into that scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that comes down quite a bit on a day-to-day basis. That's one of the good perks of being a real estate agent is you get first dibs on things, right? Especially when it's a good deal. But yeah, it is a conversation that has happened and has had taking place, and it has worked out in some scenarios. And other scenarios, maybe we just couldn't meet on a number, and boom, it goes on the MLS. So that's kind of, a lot of my business that comes on the MLS. A lot of times I had the first opportunity on it, and it just so happened where it didn't fit whether it was the location that I invest in, or it just didn't work as far as numbers, or it didn't work for my investment strategy. So sometimes I'll end up just shooting those back on the market. So yeah, they like that too. I think that's one of the tools that sets myself up from your traditional residential real estate agent is, all right, you come with a whole bunch of other options. You could either help me buy my property and close quick, and this makes sense as far as this standpoint in my life, or okay, we can put it on the market and try to get top dollar, and this is the avenue that we go. Everyone has their own different different things that happen in their life that they maybe need the cash quick. So me as a cash investor, it works out great. And other times they're okay with holding out and we'll get them top dollar for their property. And I think that's what's cool about it. And I understand the investment side of real estate. And I think that's what investors tend to flock to. Instead of someone who just traditionally sells residential homes, they're stuck in that mindset where they don't understand what a cap rate is or what your ROI should be or different things like that. They don't understand that lingo. So it's been helpful being an investor and an agent.
If I'm going to hire someone to sell my real estate, I want that person to own real estate, love real estate, and do this every single day. We're getting close to wrapping this episode up. We want to respect your time. I have one last question. If I was a 18, 19-year-old, say I go to Siena, the school that you went to, and say I see your success on LinkedIn and I'm interested in real estate, I want to be an investor. I understand I should probably start on the brokerage side, and I think real estate is for me. I reach out to you, we're getting a coffee. I say, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm impressed by what you've done. What's the advice that you're giving me right away?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is sometimes, and I'll be blunt with people off the rip, it's awesome, but you got to crawl before you can walk, right? And I think you got to figure out, how can you go ahead and start getting yourself adapted to learning real estate? And I think one of the reasons would be to join a real estate brokerage or find a mentor here in the area. And that's really how I've had success over time. Every time that I've done something, I've had a mentor to back it, right? And I've had someone that can hold me accountable and hold me my feet to the fire, and then also motivate me to start performing or producing or acquiring things. And I think without a mentor, it's tough for someone to really do that unless they're really self-motivated. And I was self-motivated, but I think having that extra layer of motivation and inspiration is very helpful. So I always say to them, find someone that you can trust that's already doing what you want to do, right? Whether it's real estate or not real estate, whether you want to be an accountant or a doctor or a police officer, I don't care what it is. Find someone who's already in that industry and pick their brain and really maybe try to hang out with them or go on some of their appointments or go with them to meet contractors and different things like that, because you need to have that firsthand experience before you can just dive into something. Books and podcasts are great, but until you're out there in the real world doing it, that's your best, I think, educational level and best way to learn is going out and trying it and experiencing it firsthand. And that would be one of the best ways to do it, is finding a mentor. So finding a mentor, and don't think that, I can just buy real estate tomorrow and let's get into it. Because yeah, you can. And you definitely, it's not a terrible thing, but at the end of the day, you're going to see a lot more hiccups up front and you're going to have a lot more trial and error than if you did just go ahead and, mentor someone and kind of learn from their mistakes. So that would be my advice to someone starting out.
No, that's fantastic. And that's beautiful advice. Is what you're doing fantastically nationwide, locally, is networking. Networking is huge. And getting that mentor is probably just as valuable. And that is a great place to be. And you'll continue to learn and grow and avoid a lot of those common mistakes that we tend to make at an early age when we're trying to figure out this business. Giovanni, this is the Collecting Real Estate show. They say you have to have 3 of something to make a collection. I'm going to deviate a little bit on this first question because from what we've learned from you, I want to know on this first question, what is going to be in 5 to 10 years your desired unit count on the investment side? What do you think you're going to be specializing in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, I think 5 years, I'm still probably going to be on the smaller multifamily, but within reason, like smaller when I'm saying like 8 to like 10 units. And then 10 years from now, I more or less want to start investing into those bigger apartment complexes, 40 units, 80 units plus. That's where I see myself in 10 years from now. And that maybe that'll start sooner, who knows? But I think I like to set myself some realistic goals. And I think that's more realistic is, 10 years out, getting into those bigger complexes, maybe even doing some ground up new construction, especially right now with the lack of inventory. I think that is something that is definitely going to spike. It's just building material and costs that need to come down a little bit for that to work. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as far as my goals.
Yeah, and we will see here. We're all waiting for what's next, and let's keep this hot market rolling. The inevitable, may shift at some point, which certainly changes all of our business plans. It has to. Mm-hmm. And no, I love that. But as me and Steven like to say, go bigger, faster, and it sounds like that's going to be your long-term goal. I wouldn't be surprised if you're buying apartment complexes more in 4 or 5 years than 10 years, but we will see. Question number 2, what is your 1 to 2 year personal goal?
Yeah, I think personally, continue to grow my brokerage side of real estate. I have a team underneath me here at Serenity. So we have a total of 26 agents on our team now. And out of those 26, I brought about 10 of them on board. And I want to continue that and grow my team and grow our brokerage as a whole, because we are Serenity Real Estate Team for a reason. We consider ourselves a true team, all encompassing, and balance things off from each other. But more or less continue to grow my success in the kind of real estate sales aspect. This past year, I was just honored as one of the top producing agents here in the
talking personal, not business. I want to hear about what do you do outside of real estate?
Well, I even think my business comes into more personal aspect overall. So that's what it comes down to. But yeah, I think for myself, buying myself buying myself a house hack here in the capital region is something that I want to do personally, and kind of grow that part of my life and have my roots in the area, and then continue to find something down in like Florida and be able to split my time eventually down that way. So that would be a goal personally. But overall, I always incorporate my business in my personal life. So it was hard to answer that one.
You can't separate.
That's awesome, Steven. I'm so glad that you highlighted that, because when I started at 21, I went from just a partier in college to the light switch went off in my junior year in college, read that book. And then from there, it was business, 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 business. And I can continue saying that because I neglected everything else. Relationships, not in a horrible way. I was just spending 100% of my time on business. That was the main priority. And I realized 10, 15 years later that, I did sacrifice so much. If I was able to go back, I would have found a little bit better balancing act there.
Well, I know Gio's a golfer. I was hoping for a handicap goal, but he's all in on real estate, and that's why we're all here today.
It got to a point where I had to start running marathons to create some type of a balancing act, because I was so focused in on business all the time. How do we assist you, or how can we assist you, and how do we contact you?
Yeah. So one of the ways that you could contact me is whether it's through social media. I'm on all platforms of social media, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I have a account for my Burr investing endeavors, and people can follow me along that aspect. So it's called the Burr with 4 R's Kid. So the BRRR Kid. And that's on Instagram. And I kind of highlight what I do as far as the investment side. And then personally, like Facebook and my other Instagram avenues, you'll see me enjoying my personal life. I do get out there and enjoy myself, but more or less, that's kind of the other avenues. And then as far as a business standpoint and the brokerage side of real estate, I'm always active on Bigger Pockets and helping investors on those avenues, helping them figure out strategies and different ways to mitigate some problems that they may have as far as the investment side. And I don't know everything. I'm always continuing to learn, but from what I've experienced over these last 2 years as an investor, and then my last 5 years as an agent, I've seen a thing or two over the course of time, and a little bit more than an average person starting out. So I help kind of people on, those forums and different pages on Facebook and stuff like that, kind of get through some problems and different things. So.
No, that's awesome. You're even at 23 years old, you've had a serious degree of success, and you're a mentor to others. So that's fantastic. I appreciate that. Giovanni, I really look forward to watching you, and I'm really expecting some big things. And thank you for being on the show. Enjoy the weekend.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Thank you.